Without further ado, welcome everybody to our National AI Literacy Day event for AI for CA. Um, just to very briefly kind of introduce who we are. Um, AI for CA is a project of CS for CA, a statewide organization of volunteers and CS teachers who really want to advance computer science teaching and learning in California, and we are the AI focused subgroup of that. Our website is down there at the bottom of the slides right here, cs4ca.org/AI. Feel free to go to the website to see a lot more about some of the lessons we have, other events, things like that. As far as us as an organization, we really like to talk about AI as part of computer science, so through a lot of a coding lens, but we also believe that CS and AI is interdisciplinary, which we will be talking about a little bit during the meeting today. The AI community is diverse, so making sure that we are recognizing and uplifting as many voices as we can. And that AI should be easy to teach. The vast majority of the lessons and materials that we either put together ourselves or gather for other folks, we try to make it so that even if you're not necessarily super comfortable with coding or teaching coding or AI yourself, that you should still be able to teach it. And so, what is National AI Literacy Day? Basically, it's a organization that started, I think last year, maybe a couple years ago, that is trying to have kind of a hour of code or type of impact on AI specifically. And so there's lots of events all around both the United States mostly, but also around the world. Where folks are talking about AI literacy and how to teach kids about AI and how to build teachers' AI literacy and everything like that. So go ahead and the actual National AI Literacy Day is tomorrow. The goal for this event today is to kind of give a either a primer or to allow teachers to run maybe a lesson tomorrow or something like that, or just to kind of get the ball rolling on National AI Literacy Day, because we don't want to detract from any of the amazing events happening tomorrow. So the structure for this event is going to be a series of talks given by some of our members present today, including myself. I'm Daniel Ritchie. I am the chair of AI for CA, and let's just as a quick overview of kind of what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to start with Mark Loundy, and he's going to be giving us a very interesting, wonderful talk on why we need to start talking about AI in our classrooms right now. A lot of this stuff has been out for a while, but if you haven't started yet, you may be feeling intimidated for integrating AI into your classroom or teaching about it. And so why start now? As well as talking about what AI literacy looks like across the entire K-12 spectrum. And then looking at interdisciplinary ways to integrate teaching about AI in both elementary school and secondary school. And then we have a couple of kind of example lessons and things that you can teach, like how LLMs work or from using generative AI to teach AI. And so each talk will be about 5 minutes, and we're happy to answer questions afterwards, or at the very end of all of the talks, we can have some questions as well. And so I believe with that, I will hand it over to you, Mark Loundy.
Thank you, Dr. Dan. So I have to be both wonderful and interesting. That's quite a challenge you've given me. Actually, let me start sharing my screen since we went through all that tech stuff before. Right, that one. And you should now see my screen. Can you confirm that you do?
Yeah.
All right. Um, so I always start with a slide. It's just moving too fast. There are major developments nearly every day. So whatever I'm talking about now, for the most part, any of the details could be changing, and probably are changing behind me there somewhere. I want to talk about what I'm talking about. When we talk about AI literacy, now this is not in the dictionary. We've sort of struggled with these words over the past few years, and these are the meanings that I've settled on. So when we talk about AI literacy versus AI fluency is teaching somebody how to use the AI tools. AI literacy is teaching somebody about the AI tools, the technology behind it, the history behind it, the broader the societal uh, effects that AI might have, things like that. That's literacy. So like that. Um, there's a lot of very powerful people. Now, not necessarily smart people, although Bill Gates is certainly a very smart person. There are a lot of people who have a lot of say over our day-to-day lives, who are the ones who are deciding on how AI is being implemented and how it's being uh, dealt with in the workforce. Um, it's important that we look at education, though, which I think not all of us, but most of us have perceived education as being, say, less than perfect. Some people will go to the length of saying that the way we've been teaching for the past couple of generations kind of sucks. We could be doing a lot better at it, but because of organizational and professional inertia, it's extremely hard to change anything. So that's what Bill's talking about. He's saying, don't just make bad things faster, uh, which is the way I like to put it myself. That's so as those of us who are in the first or say first and a half wave of implementers of AI, we have an opportunity here to determine how it's going to go forward for the next couple of generations. We have a lot more um, leverage with what's going to be going on than people who might come into this profession 5, 10 years from now. So we have a lot of responsibility now to not make crappy systems just faster. Um, and you can't say no. You can't just say, "Oh no, I'm just going to keep teaching exactly the way I have been because I know when they turn in AI stuff." Well, you don't. The kids are ahead of us. They will always be ahead of us. You might be able to tell if a student who had a particular writing style turns in something that's all of a sudden way over their head. Well, you would have known that without an AI detector. You would have known that in the past maybe they had a parent helping them because this wasn't their voice. So those things haven't changed. But in general, AI detection is just awful. Now I've learned that you can't see part of the screen. Down in the middle of it, there's a big M dash that with the words M dash next to it. If you're listening to social media every once in a while saying, yep, you can always tell if it's got lots of M dashes in it. Well, I happen to use lots of M dashes in my writing, and I always have. So great, I'm AI. So just don't. We really need to figure out different ways of teaching, not just try to keep the same thing going. Um, but really, why you need to do it now, you don't have a whole heck of a lot of choice. If you've ever seen um, a surfer versus somebody who's just out in the water, well, if somebody who's out by the surfers is standing out in the water and a wave comes, they're just going to get the surfers get on it and they go with the wave. And that's what we have to do. We have to actually go with it because if we don't, we're just going to get crunched by a few tons of water. If you really, you'll get a link to these slides. I'm not going to go over this in detail, but if you really want to look at a study about detection, you can take a look at this literature review of studies. Um, back in the day, back in 2023, at the dawn of generative AI, at least popular generative AI, this lady named Alison Witten said AI won't replace professions like doctors, lawyers, and journalists. But those who work with AI will replace those who don't. And people have taken a lot of comfort from this. They key on the phrase "won't replace professions." Well, in fact, the reality is much of those professions are being replaced, not replaced, but people are being made more efficient by using AI, and by becoming more efficient, they're displacing their colleagues. This is a process that is ongoing now. It has affected lots of people, and there are particular professions that are hyper uh, uh, affected by this. Hyper, what's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, you know what I mean. That they can be replaced most easily by generative AI. I used to be a photographer. My mother was an artist. I grew up around artists, and I've worked with a lot of artists when I worked in newspapers. So I have a lot of emotional attachment to human created art. I am convinced, however, that commercial human created art is done for. AI can already do good enough, and that's the corporate standard for content. It isn't the best possible and never has been. They'll take it if they can get it, but the actual standard is good enough. AI is already there. Um, those of us who have been privileged enough to live in Western society in the Northern Hemisphere, well, our jobs are the most vulnerable to being replaced by AI. So we need to examine what the purpose, what the mission of education is. So not just in your classrooms, but outside of your classrooms. If you're talking to your administrators, to your superintendents, to your board members, what is our job now? Let's assume that a good percentage of us going forward are no longer going to be conventionally employed. Well, what's the job for education if it's not to just produce workers for corporations? These are questions we have to be asking ourselves. Talked about that. Translators. I mean, when was the last time you hired a translator? I know we have to in certain circumstances, but how much translating do we do every week without hiring an actual human translator? Because AI has been embedded in translation apps. Google, for example, has been AI based for long before ChatGPT. Um, so we really need to think about how we do our jobs, because even if we don't want it to change, even if we've been trained to continue to do it in a particular way and aren't ready for it to change, it's changing. Not it is going to change, but it is changing now. So we need to be serious about how we think about what we're going to be doing going forward and how we want to be conducting our profession going forward. So these are thoughts we have to have. That I'm not giving you in classroom tools. My colleagues will be doing a little bit more of that. And this is where you can find me. As I said, Daniel will be giving you a link to all the slides, so you'll be able to find me pretty much anywhere online except for Instagram. I don't do that. And thank you all very much. I appreciate you all coming and taking time out of your days. And Daniel, back to you.
All right, thank you, Mark. Like Mark said about the links being sent out, we will send out links to basically all of the slides and stuff like that, likely after the presentation today, so you'll be able to take a look at it either this evening or tomorrow. Um, but I would like to pass it off now to Roxanne for the next talk.
Okay,
Actually,
so
sorry, really briefly, if anybody has any questions, feel free to uh, use the raise hand functionality or put them in the chat. But if I don't see anybody, I'll just keep us rolling forward. So go ahead and set up Roxanne.
okay, so hopefully this is working now. Let me know if it isn't. Thumbs up, everybody can see it.
We can see it. It still looks like the
It's an
slideshow,
edit mode.
not full screen. Yeah, it's still in edit mode for us right now.
That is weird because I have it in full screen this time.
It looks like it actually might have like frozen or something.
Frozen. Okay. Sorry.
Here, go ahead and try again. And also, worst case scenario, I can share, and then I'll just use your cues for moving to the next one.
Oh, hold on. I just completely. Can you go ahead and maybe share? Because
Sure,
I am
no
just
problem.
having, I don't know what it is, but I'm having issues. As a matter of fact, I just completely lost my screen.
All right. Okay, this is the right screen.
Uh yeah, I believe so. So, and I
Perfect.
did take out a couple slides, so
Okay.
hopefully, and it looks like I can see the whole thing. Sorry about that. So I'm Roxanne Pompilio, and I teach over at Lewis Middle. I'm also an ambassador one-to-one for instructional technology, and I'm also part of the AI for California group. And I'm here today to talk a little bit about AI literacy and what that looks like across grade levels. You could go to the next slide.
Oh, sorry. There we go.
Okay. Okay, so a little bit about in terms of AI literacy, it isn't just about using the tools, it's about understanding, being able to evaluate and communicate with AI responsibly as well as ethically. And if you look at the little progression here, a lot of it really does involve skills and progression, not just like a one-time lesson. You can go to the next slide. So what this looks like in classrooms is that for students, they should be able to understand what AI is and what it isn't, eventually evaluate its accuracy and its outputs, and then also be able to use it without replacing their thinking. And this is kind of where we want to go with students and involving these different levels of progression. Next slide. And I skipped that one on my slide. So we're going to skip the little meter in terms of time.
Sorry, give me 1 second. I got a comment that somebody couldn't see the slides, so I'm gonna just make sure that I have the right ones open.
Oh, that's weird. I could totally see them.
Okay, I'm just gonna reshare them real quick, and hopefully that fixes it.
I was also able to see them.
Okay. Everybody good now? Okay,
Sue?
cool.
Yep,
Okay, so
Sue
maybe
got
it
it.
wasn't just my computer. So as I mentioned earlier, AI literacy is a progression, and it's not just one lesson. So this idea is that at like an elementary level, you're kind of moving from a foundational like awareness level to then when you're in maybe middle school, it's more of analysis, and maybe later in middle school application, early high school, and then eventually getting to more responsible use and knowing how to better evaluate AI and when you'd want to use it as opposed to not use it. So you're seeing kind of that staircase progression. You could go to the next slide. Right now in schools, what we're seeing is a lot of inconsistent and more tool focused on AI and not the scaffolding or what we should be seeing because people are maybe doing a lesson here or a lesson there, or they're not getting consistent AI literacy. They might be getting it in some classes, but not really getting it in other classes. And it's created all kinds of issues. Uh, you could go to the next slide. So the focus should be more on developing skills and the literacy skills first, and then getting into the tools, particularly for younger students. And then once they get those skills, then they can kind of move on. Um, Otherwise, what happens is the tool ends up kind of replacing the thinking. In this next slide, I created a gift, which we'll see in just a moment, but I'm going to talk a little bit about this progression ladder first. So starting with awareness, it's kind of like, what is AI? Can we trust it? Students are maybe noticing errors. They're not actually using the tools yet. And then when they get into analysis, they might be looking at, is it accurate? And then at the application level, how can this help me learn? And they start using AI more intentionally. And then by the time they get into upper grades, it's like, well, should I use it here? And it might happen at an earlier stage, depending on when students start to get introduced to AI literacy. Like if they are starting now at middle school, the level's going to be maybe a little bit, it might, some of this could change a little bit. If you go to the next slide. So this slide here is a gift, and it's going to kind of run through this progression of what it looks like at the foundation part. And then you can see as it progresses to middle school. So when you get these slides, you can kind of re-watch this and it'll play through the gift. So then you could kind of see what it looks like at each of these levels. And then it just kind of repeats itself. So what we want is we want students to, as they progress through each stage of AI literacy, that they're going to eventually get to the agency progression of it. Okay, you could go ahead and go to the next slide. So what this kind of looks like is at an awareness or foundational level, like maybe you have younger kids, like up to third grade, they're noticing AI maybe made a math error in its explanation. Whereas at the analysis level, I realize that, AI responses may be missing like the historical perspective, particularly at middle school. I noticed this in some of the lessons I've done. At the application level, they used AI to get help with an essay, but they did the draft. So AI is not writing it for them. And then at, upper grades and higher school and high school and beyond, they have that responsibility by now to kind of, should they maybe use it or should they not use it, and when to use it and when not to use it. So you can kind of see that progression. Go to the next slide. So this is kind of the roadmap of what this would kind of look like, and I think this also kind of matches up with if you go to the CS site and the AI for California site. It kind of matches up with what you'd see at foundation, and then what you would see at the different like early grades. It's foundation, middle is like analysis and questioning, and then by high school it's more independent thinking. And next slide. So the takeaway is helping students to use AI responsible. A few tips. Remember that AI is technology, it's not human. AI literacy isn't about teaching tools. It's about like helping students develop to think and critically think about AI and the output that it's producing and whether or not it's accurate or not accurate. So it's not replacing human thought. And then the last slide, I believe, is just some, you could go to the next slide. I put a whole bunch of links and resources that you might want to look at. Common Sense Media is focused more on grades 6 through 12. And when you go to those, there's a lot of plug and play options. And then I did a Trailblazer project with AI and education, and I shared with you the actual slide deck. So that way you have a lot of different lessons from all the way like K through 12, or these ones are 7 through 12. So I don't have a lot of lessons for littles, but I think we have somebody talking tonight that might be, talking a little bit more about littles. And next slide. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation. And hopefully I didn't go over 5 minutes, but I might have.
All right. Thank you so much, Roxanne. All right. I'll pause for a couple seconds here if there are any questions. Otherwise, we can move on to Vicky. And Vicky, if you want to start kind of setting up your slides, feel free. And if there anybody wants to raise their hand or put a question in the chat, feel free. Um, Otherwise, we can ask questions at the very end or continue the discussions in the chat. All right, I think we're good. So then, Vicky, feel free to get going whenever you're ready.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Vicky Sedgwick, and I am officially a retired elementary computer science teacher. My husband says I'm poorly retired. I'm also a current standards writer for CSTA and a member of the AI4CA working group, primarily writing lessons for the littles. I'm here today to talk about integrating AI literacy into elementary. I do want to start kind of with a what is AI literacy. Mark's given a definition and Roxanne's gone over it and stuff. So I wanted to kind of put a context around what I'm going to present. So what does it mean to me when I'm talking about integrating it into elementary school? What am I actually talking about? So I start with looking at the California Department of Education guidance around learning with AI and learning about AI. The CDE says that AI literacy is the knowledge, skills, and attitudes related to how AI works. My focus is on the knowledge of how it works and the impacts it's having on our lives. The CDE also says that AI literacy should be embedded across content areas. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And that it should be introduced as early as elementary grades. Often hear that, why are you talking about it in elementary? It shouldn't be until middle school or whatever. Nope, starting in elementary. AI for CS has one of our guiding principles, as Daniel noted, that AI is part of CS, but that doesn't mean that teaching about AI can or should be just in CS lessons. So I want to look at a couple of the lessons that we currently have on our website and talk about how these can be interdisciplinary, how they can be integrated into other subject areas. All right, so the first lesson is one for K to 2, and it focuses on teaching that training AI is all about data and that how the data that's used for training affects the output from the machine, right? It's specifically about whether a machine can correctly classify foods that students first classify themselves. Okay. So just some of the areas where this lesson can be aligned are, of course, the California Computer Science Standards, but it can also be aligned to California Common Core Math Standards, California Health Standards, California Common Core ELA Standards. And I've only noted some of the things where it can apply. The second lesson I'm kind of highlighting is one that was designed for grades 3 to 5. And it's to help students understand how data supports AI applications like ChatGPT, in generating sentences. In addition to aligning to the California Computer Science Standards, it also aligns to the AI for K-12 guidelines, which the previous lesson does as well, but I ran out of room on the slide, and the California Common Core ELA standards. So these lessons right in and of themselves can be interdisciplinary, even though our website is not noting that. So maybe you're thinking, this is great, but how can I do this myself? I wouldn't even know where to start, right? It's like, oh, you have a lesson, but how do you make it AI focused and all these other interdisciplinary things? So my recommendation is to start with what to teach about AI. Since 2018, the AI for K-12 initiative has been developing national guidelines for teaching AI in K-12. They're organized around the 5 big ideas in AI. If you click on that image on the left, it'll take you to those progressions by grade bands, so you can see what's recommended there. On the right is a graphic about the AI learning priorities for all K-12 students that were published by the Computer Science Teachers Association. In July, CSTA will be releasing new national K-12 CS standards, and these will include standards related to AI. For now, if you click on this link and specifically go to the Prioritize Foundational K-12 AI Learning Outcomes, it's in the speaker notes if you have the slides, it'll show you ideas of where you want to start teaching by grade band. If you're interested in what the new standards may look like in July, you can check out the draft 3.0 revision. It's not the final, but it's pretty close. This is the progression chart, and if you click on it, it will go to a web page that lets you look at the standards in more detail and this progression chart. And if you notice, this is just the first page of them, there's a machine learning progression. So you now kind of know where to look for the what. But our lessons at AI4CA often list the alignment to the AI for K-12 guidelines and California computer science standards, but they aren't listing those interdisciplinary standards either. They're not telling you what ELA standards it can meet or what math standards it can meet, while they often can, and most of the times all of them can. So one thing I recommend is ask a chatbot. Say, hey, I'm looking at this lesson here, and give it the web page. What could I do to align it to ELA standards or to math standards? And it can tell you that. Or get more creative and say, I want to run this lesson, or I want to use this book, and ask it all the connections that can be made in whatever curricular area you're interested in. Be sure to check the output, though. If it's giving you standards, a lot of times they're wrong. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Vicky. I do actually want to point out a question that Scott asked in the chat. I know Aletta and Mark started to talk about some, start to answer it, and I think that's great. But Vicky, I'd love to hear your take on Scott's question, which was, do you anticipate having to update or change lessons with and about AI more often because the technology is evolving so fast?
If I'm writing lessons about generative AI, they may need to change. I have a lot of the lessons, AI's been around since 1956. A lot of lessons have to do with classification, image recognition, things like that. That's not really changing much, at least what I'm teaching at the level we can teach in K-5. So.
All right. Thank you, Vicky. I will be the next presenter. I will give me a second to share my slides. All right, and so Vicky gave us some great ideas and tips for integrating AI and CS into K-5, into elementary school, and I will be talking about secondary school. So I'll be talking about grades 6 to 12 and how we can potentially integrate this stuff into other subjects. I'm Daniel. I've introduced myself in the chat and at the beginning of the session, but also apologies for the bad lighting on my camera. I'm setting up a new office and I'm currently at the mercy of the sun. But let's get going. So we've talked about this a little bit already, but why, introduce AI into other subjects now in middle and high school? Well, because AI is already in a lot of places. We've been talking about this, but AI is in social media, and which was recently banned for kids under 16 in Australia, which is a very interesting case that I'd like to follow moving forward. But And a lot of the algorithms and stuff like that that are AI are part of that reasoning as to why it was banned. Um, as well as preparing our students to have AI skills to make sure they're on the right side of a widening gap. But also, we need to teach students, like many others have said already, that to use AI critically, make sure that it's not hurting their own skills, and potentially to use it in new and interesting ways. And so I think to kind of summarize some of the sentiment already and to kind of build off of what Vicky was talking about, um, I found in kind of trying to prepare this talk that it's often you can integrate AI when you're talking about analyzing information or making decisions. Really, it two extremely broad, and honestly, that probably doesn't even cover everything, but two extremely broad categories where uh, when students are analyzing information, they can analyze it either alongside the way that an AI is learning through different algorithms or making decisions, analyzing why the student is making a decision and whether or not they would trust AI to do that to make that same decision. And so to kind of show that, similar to Vicky, I have a couple of examples of lessons that we have on our website. Um, and so the first one is about language. And so we have a lesson on our site around basically creating sentences, generating sentences using code and Scratch. The code is fairly straightforward. I know I personally have had middle school students do it before, and I'm very confident that high school students would be able to as well. Or if the high school students want to go a little bit more advanced and do it in Python or something, I'm sure they can. But getting kind of the structure of the sentence and where to input an adjective, a noun, and a verb. And so some of the code looks like this for a slightly more advanced version, where you can have, picking a random noun, verb, adverb, and turning it into a poem. And I think this would align really well with some of the language standards for California Common Core. Using different types of phrases and clauses. You could do that same activity, except instead of directly adding, nouns and adjectives, you could do different types of clauses and see how they connect. And so you could address some of those CSTA AI priorities that Vicky was just talking about, such as some of the machine learning. How are these models learning? And using the data, the list of nouns and adjectives that the student comes up with, as well as looking at, would you use this sentence generator? Is it useful? Why or why not? And maybe even examining the bias. So the student gets to choose what words go into their data set. And so is the student picking that with any kind of bias? They're picking the words that they like. And so just kind of making that clear to the student that, you're picking the things that you like to go into this. Whoever's making ChatGPT or Claude or even your social media algorithm is doing something very similar. And so let's see. Sorry, to move on to the second example, because our talks are fairly quick. Sorry, a science example. And so the lesson that we have already is for high school students, and it is on classification. Classification is a really big part of AI. It's not the generative component that has become super popular lately, but the classification. So something like Google Quick Draw. It's a website that you can go to. It's a really fun little like warm up activity to do, where students draw on a canvas, and an AI will try to guess what they're drawing, and it does really, really well. And you're actually helping train the AI by using it, because you get a certain prompt of what to draw, and the AI now knows, hey, this is something that a drawing of a dog might look like. Oh, sorry. Sorry, a lot of the images are linked. And so with this kind of idea of, you get examples of something and can train the AI to classify it or categorize it. You can take this to something called Teachable Machine, which I've used numerous times in lessons. It's a really great resource uh, where basically students can upload files of images. I think you can actually do video as well, and even audio. And the students manually classify those, and then they can kind of use it to classify new, previously unseen data points. So you can use it. In the past, I've had students, try and classify between apples and oranges. But to connect this to science, sorry, this is just kind of what Teachable Machine looks like. But to connect this to the science standards, so something like in seventh grade science for evolution, classifying living groups of organisms by shared characteristics. So you could absolutely have students put a couple different kinds or species of organisms into Teachable Machine and see what characteristics the students use to identify it as a different species and what characteristics does it seem like the AI is using to differentiate them. And that would be a really interesting lesson where you could once again kind of go over some of that machine learning data sets to train models and everything like that, as well as getting the students towards some of that representation of, so the AI is able to learn from both images and sound or something like that. And so those are just two examples. Both of them are on the website. The images are linked in the slides that I'll put the link in the chat for in a second. And just kind of moving forward, a couple tips that I've found from working with teachers doing this and from doing this myself. Sometimes the students can be the experts, especially in grades 6 to 12. Some of the really awesome things that I've found have been when teachers said, you know what do you guys think, AI is going to be relevant for here, or allowing the students to kind of share the expertise, because I think it really gets them to buy into the process. And then also having the students intentionally position themselves in relation to the AI. So in many of these lessons, the student is the designer. But what would it look like if they were a critical reviewer of this AI? Or what if they were trying to be the boss of an LLM in a certain case and make sure that it's working for the use case that it's supposed to? And I think that really helps build the critical thinking aspect and the reflection on how they're using it. And so just, kind of once again, this is all extremely important, from, using AI in the workforce to social media to having, and the way to kind of address this. One of the things that we want to do at AI4CA is prepare students by showing them how they can code AI themselves, and show them that it's not a magical black box. It's really fancy math and a little bit of coding that can really be useful and applicable in a lot of cases, but isn't scary and can be designed so that it's helpful to the students and teachers and anybody using it. And so thank you. That will be all from my talk. I think I saw a question in the chat. Let me take a look real quick. Do you have your students experiment with defining their persona as part of the prompt? I'll check the chat just so we can keep going. Victor, actually, I see a raised hand. What's up?
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. Just a question of access. How do you get students access to platforms, or is it just the educator who's putting it up on screen and then everybody doing it as a group, or are there instances where the students themselves have access to some of these platforms? If so, how?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's always one of the really big things that we have to deal with when we're either making these resources or planning lessons. But so a lot of the resources that we've used in our lessons require either no account, or the student can kind of make a very quick Google account. And access for everything I believe that I mentioned, access is free. And so I don't foresee too many troubles with that. Although there is always the issue of potentially having internet access and computers available and stuff like that. Several of these things I have done kind of in a I do it at the front of the class and just kind of talk about it with the students. And that has worked, as well as a couple of the lessons I think have a paper and pen kind of option. That sentence one that I was talking about has a like, you can kind of diagram it out on paper as well to start working with it. But yeah, that's a great question. Generally, I think we're trying to make these as accessible as possible. All right. Then I will turn it over to, sorry, I believe next we have Aletta.
Okay, let me get my screen up and rolling. Okay.
Looks
Can
good.
I get a thumbs
Looks
up
good.
for screen? All right. And I'm using a timer because I'm one of those talkative people. It's important to start. So my name's Aletta Sauer. I'm a retired computer science and engineering teacher. And to be real honest, my career has been about, um, hello, my computer is not advancing. Let me try this. Uh, okay. It looks good. And it says that you can see this. You know what, Daniel? Can I get you to run my slides? Maybe I have a bandwidth issue here. Let me stop sharing.
Yep, no worries.
Sorry.
All good. All right, here we go.
While he lines it up, my talk is about how LLMs work. And really, my perspective is on how we can give students a hands-on learning when it comes to AI. Because as a career tech ed teacher, hands-on learning builds a more solid footing and it helps students as they move on to more abstractions. Next slide. And skip this one because there'll be more information about that. So these are two great links to sites and you'll see them repeated in the resources as well to help people make decisions about what you see on or what you begin to teach. Next slide. I got a locked up machine. As I'm talking about large language models, I want you to think about these questions. These are the questions I ask my students to think about. And in the chat, what kinds of explanations do you use with your own students when it comes to explaining what AI is? Next slide. Because in the realm of AI, when you talk about large language models, if you see that little orange arrow, it's pointing at language prediction and natural language processing. And that's just a very small specific realm of where AI the AI that we're talking about, the realm itself of all of the technology is so very broad. And what's important to understand is what might be advancements in one technology does not necessarily extend to all the realms of AI. There's a reason, for example, we're not asking ChatGPT to operate the Waymo vehicles and things like that. Next slide. So large language models are, in fact, generative AI models. And they're important because since about 2018 to today, they have just the improvement in their performances is significant. And it's much closer to human-like responses. The AI is, in fact, completing tasks that require or look like human thinking. Next slide. When we talk about models, we're talking about simplified representations of systems. And I use this slide with my students. In fact, it's up on there's some posters, a set of posters that are used when I'm teaching students this. And this is one of the pieces that's really important because the models communicate, they help explain how things work, and they predict how something might behave. Next slide. And the progress that we see in the large language models that they're using causes people to sort of go, it's the people are willing to accept it as magic. Students will accept it as magic, and sometimes teachers. And so these hands-on, very simplified representations, next slide, the hands-on simplified representations really make a difference in terms of causing students to actually grapple with the ideas. The beauty of the green eggs and ham model that Vicky described, and she had it on her running GIF, which was really cool. 62 pages of text, 927 words, and only 50 unique words. Next slide. And, this particular, the first three language models that you see on this deck, students will work like the Girls Who Code Club, and I'm an advisor for Girls Who Code. They will actually run a table at lunch to show other students the green eggs and ham model. And it's fun and it's engaging and it's causing students to actually think more about the technology. And because it doesn't consume resources, because it's a very physical demonstration, it causes people to then start talking more about what's really happening with the large language model. Next slide. And the first one, basically, you're using a lower elementary technique where you create sentence strips. You're using roughly 35 sentences from the book Green Eggs and Ham. The tokens are created. You can see the token divisions there. They're color coded and they're shape coded. Next slide. The model really just focuses on the language of the story. And so if you're in an elementary classroom, you might have the students read the sentences aloud, cut the sentence up, deliver it to the different buckets. You might do activities like that. When we're doing demonstrations with older students, next slide, we actually have a display that shows a series of these screenshots. Next slide. Next slide. So you can see as they progress through sentences, there are connections that are being established. The tokens themselves, tokens in this model are a predefined portion of the sentence strip. A word, multiple words, or words and punctuation. And as you begin to make these sentences and students are training the model, they cut up the strips, they add them to the box, and we pre-create a lot of these tools. Then they also will pull out of those same containers to recreate languages or recreate sentences. And so students are literally, what's the right phrase? besides making connections, they are also making connections between tokens that don't exist. And so there are times where when they're pulling them back out of the buckets, they actually create sentences that don't exist in the book. And, they get prizes if because this is lunch and we're trying to get high school kids to talk about AI and not just use it on their homework. Um, trying to pull out a sentence from memory and then they can check in the book, or to create a sentence that's not in the book. And so these activities are really helpful because students are testing a model and practicing with it. Next slide. We also set up, there's a great set of Scratch models that work not only with the sentence strip model, but next slide. There are decks of card models that were created by David. I can't pronounce his last name. He gets credit at the end of the slide deck. But there are other models where they begin to use physical representations. Next slide, Daniel. When they're back up one. When they generate a sentence with the deck of cards, and it's only a deck of cards, they randomly draw cards. They're really just generating gibberish. And so, next slide. They can try it out. Sometimes they see how crazy the sentence is that they can get. They'll try it out on the Scratch. It's not until they get to model number 3 where they're using 927 cards. And it actually took us about a month of kids working on it because it wasn't me. They made this deck of cards and it actually creates sentences that are a little more readable. They're still gibberish. Next slide, Daniel. There's still some gibberish, but they like it. And we actually have a Yoda doll that one of my students is trying to figure out how to code it so it'll project these sentences. But my point is the students are actually physically handling the materials and understanding that there is this increasing realm of complexity because when it's on a screen or where it's a video, making those concrete connections doesn't always happen. And so it's an important difference. And I know I'm 2 minutes over now, so I'll just cut it. Daniel, can you roll all the way to the end? There we go. Slide deck. There's the original slide deck and the credits. David Chakowski, who is a CSTA chapter leader from New York, I think, maybe New York City. Fantastic ideas. And in fact, there's even a Markov chain. And so I have one student who's trying to create a model for that using Python, but we'll see how it works. But it is exciting. They are, oh, okay. Thanks, Vicky. I see in the chat. Here's the slide deck that I just gave you. These resources are on the AI for California website. The green eggs and ham one was posted, I think, in 2023, if I recall correctly, but you can also search for it. But I really recommend that. It makes a difference in their understanding. And then the questions that they ask are much more sophisticated. So.
All right. Thank you so much, Aletta. I know we are running a touch over time. If anybody has to go, feel free. But I will have Matt at least introduce his topic. Hopefully you can give us as much as you can, but I don't want to keep people here for too long. So we'll, any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. And let's hand it to Matt for just a little bit.
Okay, can I confirm everybody can see my slides? All right, cool. So I'm going to be super quick on this. The essence of it is I have an AI class, so I'm working with much more advanced material. But that doesn't mean I'm doing it well. That doesn't mean I'm figuring stuff out. for the more advanced material that I cannot realistically have my students like code from scratch, I'm trying to use generative AI to give them a better sense of it. And whoop, whoop. Basically, this is a unit that I made on convolutional neural networks. And the ones that are in italics and orange are things that I used various generative AI tools for. So I made use of Claude Code, I made use of Gemini, Cool Gems and stuff. And in boop, 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 at the very end, you can click on this link, you can click on my QR code, and you can kind of see the resources that I made use of. And I'm happy to talk with anybody about it more. But basically, I'm trying to get better at this generative AI, like vibe coding type stuff, both for myself and for my students. And so I'm kind of sharing with you the most recent thing that I did with it. So I will leave it at that.
All right. Thank you so much, Matt. Sorry that we had to cut a little short, but maybe we can get you to do another talk about it at a future event or record a video for us or something. But I will wrap it up here. Thank you everybody for coming. Ooh, looks like Aletta has a question for you, Matt. Feel free to answer it while I'm wrapping up. Also, Matt, you sent the link just to me. Make sure to send it to the everybody chat.
Yeah.
Yep.
Link to my thing. Really is broken. Oh no. Okay, we'll have to fix it. But
yep.
Yeah, in terms of the challenges of vibe coding, I mean, to me, it's just I see people who with vibe coding and agents and stuff, they're like wizards. And I understand the stuff under the hood for the most part, but I am not a wizard yet. Right? Like I'm playing with it. I'm trying to get better at these things. And goals. So yeah.
All right. Thank you everybody for coming. We are going to wrap it up here. We will be sending out, I think a lot of the slides were pasted in the chat, but I'll send out a link to all of the slides in the chat. We'll post it on our website, and we'll have a recording if you want to revisit any of the topics or share it with anybody who you think might be interested. Once again, thank everybody for coming. Happy to have you here, and keep an eye out for future AI for CA events in this coming year. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.